Maglaras, I'm the Dean of the Business School. It is a real pleasure to be welcoming all of you in this slightly snowy morning in our Manhattanville campus for the 6th annual Women Business Leadership in Tech Conference. This year's theme brings us together to engage in a dialogue around leading through uncertainty, growth from all outcomes, and we're delighted to showcase alumni, faculty, successful business leaders participating today. We'd like to also send a warm welcome to all of our students from Columbia Business School, but also the Barnard College students that are tracking in STEM careers and STEM programs that are here with us today. I'll say a few thanks, and I'll say a couple of things about what we're doing in the school, and then actually sort of get out of here and or go and sit in my chair and listen to this wonderful panel. But I want to start by really expressly saying how thankful we are about our ongoing collaboration with Vista Equity Partners that have helped us bring together this impressive array of business leaders over the years and did so again today. I would also like to thank even more so the ongoing leadership, partnership, and dedication of our good friend for the school, Robert Smith. Robert is a graduate of 1994, and he's the founder and chairman of Vista Equity Partners, and he is the leading private equity executive that moved into software and tech about 20 years ago, and he has really revolutionized that area. And Robert, of course, has been a champion of the school, a good partner to Glenn, a good partner to me over the last few years, and he has been extremely helpful in helping us recruit and train and provide opportunities to a more gender and racially diverse class in the business school. And we've done actually strong strides with his partnership. So circling back now to technology for a brief moment, and how the intersection between business, the intersection with innovation and tech, I do want to say a couple of things about our own focus in the digital future. Something that started not so far away from here, of all places in the beautiful state of New Jersey. And it actually started in a place that my understanding is that Robert spent some time as a high school student at the Bell Labs. So you spent some time there, right? Yeah. So somewhere down there, the Bell Labs in the late 40s, two things happened. We invented the transistor, and then Claude Shannon invented the theory of digital communications. And, you know, our ability to store and manipulate zeros and ones and our ability to communicate with zeros and ones, 75 years later, they have actually truly transformed our world. And to me, it's something that is driving change constantly here at the school. So we've been expanding our curriculum, both in sort of exposing students to technology fundamentals, you know, how technology works, what it can do to us, from big data, analytics, AI, to courses about how data, software, and powerful algorithms are changing specific fields, marketing, finance, you know, you name it, supply chains, and also experiential learning, because I think it's important to bring students together, work in teams, work in real projects, and ideally mix the population, bring engineers together with business school students, bring design students, so we're doing a lot of that as well. So these all add up to our effort to really try to be the leading school that has sort of the most cutting-edge curriculum in that space, and I think we are that school. You know, our focus is to create the next generation of leaders that will thrive, will innovate, and they will really, through their work, change the world. And that's everything that we do. And I'll leave you, before I introduce our panel, with one factoid. Over the last 5 years, if you look at last year's student and look at the electives that they were taking in the second half of their first year, in their second year, 40% of them didn't even exist 5 years ago. That's how fast the world is changing, and our response to that. So our opening session have 4 incredible individuals, and Robert will moderate the panel of Vista partner CEOs that will lead our discussion on advancement of women in tech. Vista in 2022 achieved remarkably gender parity across the firm. It has 53% women in their total workforce, and I think more importantly, 37% of the investor roles are actually held by women. The private equity average for that number is 15%. So there are few standard deviations above where the industry is right now. But it's not surprising because Robert has been on it for actually quite some time now. So joining Robert is Rachel Arnold, at the very end, Senior Managing Director, co-head of the Endeavor Fund at Vista, Equity Partners, Christina Kosmovski, there, who is Chief Executive Officer of LogicMonitor, and Lisa Utzschneider, who is Chief Executive Officer of Integral Ad Science. So Robert, the floor is yours. Thank you all for coming.
Great. Kostas, thank you so much. And thank you for the exceptional leadership of this fantastic institution, one that I know I'm proud to be a student of and a descendant of this wonderful storied place with these new fancy buildings that we're sitting in. So pretty nice. Well done. A couple things I'd like to share before we get to our panel. Columbia has always held a very special place as a business school in that, in my view, it always attracted the most diverse, thoughtful, considered group of students. And I've had a chance, of course, many of you all to visit with people in my class that went to different business schools. And I noticed that our experience was more varied. Our experience in our clusters, we were actually the first class, 1994, that went through this cluster system and the core curriculum. And I felt when I look back that the development that occurred during that period of time is something that enabled me to be very successful at navigating the world, navigating different communities, navigating different business environments from the tools and the experiences that I learned here. And I hope for the students in the audience that you all truly have an experience, an expression of a business school time similar to mine. And I had a good chance to spend time with some students this morning. And I could tell that energy, that fire, that culture is not only intact, but evolving to meet some of the current needs of our challenging environment. I have with me today 3 exceptional executives I get the great pleasure to work with. And, a brief introduction by the dean, but I do want to say a few things. Lisa, to my right, you've now been CEO of IAS now for 4 years. Mm-hmm. And you lead an exceptional organization. It's a public company, and I think you have earnings, you said, next week, so we're excited.
Thursday.
All right. Oh, Thursday.
Tune in, everyone.
All right. And
5 p.m.
We have our new CFO, right, who's going to be leading
Tanya Secord, yeah.
that. What I'd like you to do before we get to each other is first, Lisa, talk about your journey, 20 years in this world of digital advertising, Chief Revenue Officer at Yahoo. What led you into this space of technology, this space of advertising, and what made you decide at one point to say, I really want to be a CEO? And tell us about that.
Sure. Thanks, Robert, and thank you, everyone, for having us today. So my journey, I think of my career in chapters. And coming out of school, and I got a master's degree in public policy at NYU down the street. And I really thought in my 20s I would work in the not-for-profit sector. Mm-hmm. I was writing grants, I was fundraising. But what I found was it wasn't fulfilling enough for me. And I was making better connections with the board of directors at the relief organization than I was with my peers. It just didn't feel like the right fit. So I started to explore, and that's when the internet was really starting to take off. And I was lucky enough to interview at Microsoft in New York for an enterprise role, entry level, and I got rejected. And I remember, it was snail mail back then. Like, I mean, I'm dating myself, but received the letter. I still have the letter today. I was rejected by Microsoft. I slept on it. I woke up the next morning. I'm like, I just can't accept this. So I called the recruiter and I said, hi, I'm Lisa Utzschneider. I'm the candidate you rejected. and I was that polite. I'm sure I had to sign up like, be polite.
Be polite.
Be polite, be polite. And I could hear this silence on the other side of the phone. And she said, oh. And I said, I'd really like to understand why you rejected me. And I asked for another shot. And she said, well, to tell you the truth, you didn't demonstrate enough passion.
Interesting.
And for those of you who know me, I have a lot of passion. So I said, can you give me another shot? And old school, I could hear her flipping through the job openings in New York, like hard copy paper back then. This is back when there was like Xerox and fax machines.
Right.
And so long story short, she said, there's an entry level job. You would take a pay cut coming out of not-for-profit. And I'm thinking, can I afford rent? Literally, I took a pay cut.
Right.
How low can you go? And I said, give me a shot. And she gave me a shot, and I got an entry-level job as an account manager at Microsoft, MSN. That was their competitor to AOL and Yahoo. And the rest is history. And I've spent over 20 years in technology, 10 years at Microsoft, then went over to Amazon, built the ad business at Amazon for 6 years, went to Yahoo, and they were primarily running global sales orgs and building ad businesses. And your question about how do you shift your path from a CRO to a CEO, and it was actually, I had about probably 2 mentors, bosses, who pulled me aside right before Amazon and at Amazon and said, you've got what it takes. You have got what it takes. The sky is the limit, and you now have a seat at the table. And this is something I've taken with me.
How many years into your career did that occur?
Oh, that was a good 15 years into the career. And it's something that I now pay it forward as a leader when I see high potential early in their career employees, and I do the same thing with my leadership team. I coach them on this. Pull them aside, look them in the eye, get them off of Zoom, face to face, and say, you've got what it takes. And so that was, the rejection letter was a pivotal moment for me to enter into technology, and then that moment of you've got what it takes was also a pivotal moment.
Right, I'm going to finish that, then we're going to go to Christina. Talk about, when you and I met, when you were looking to now become a CEO.
I remember that.
Yeah, so
breakfast.
Right, exactly. What were you thinking? We talked about pancakes that you make for your kids, remember?
Every Saturday.
Every Saturday.
And I don't like them.
Yeah.
You have a good memory.
I hope I do.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm proud of this, but I was a road warrior for my whole career because I worked for these major tech companies out of New York. I've never worked at headquarters on the West Coast, so I really lived on a plane. And I once reached out to a friend who was a very senior level executive, a working mom. I said, how are you doing this? Little kids and on the road. And she said, you always, always, always plan for something Saturday mornings that they'll love. And so something became a ritual. It's waffles in our house this morning because there's no school. But pancakes for years, every Saturday morning. Our older daughter, then Tess, was young. She would look forward to that.
Right.
And I really don't like eating pancakes, but I'd eat that pancake for years.
I love it. And a note, always do something fun Saturday mornings.
Always something fun.
Even if you don't have kids, do something fun Saturday mornings.
That's right.
Yeah. So this idea of now becoming a CEO.
Yeah.
And what is it like versus what did you think it was going to be like 4 years into this?
So there are 2 chapters of that. So when I joined IAS, it was shortly after Vista Equity had acquired the company. And I was lucky enough that they brought me on board to transform the company, get it up for meaningful scale, global scale. And so the first year and a half, 2.5 years, was private company. So I call it the IAS house, brought in, renovate the house, figure out what doesn't need to be touched, what do you need to restructure. And then we took the company public 1.5 years ago in the height of the pandemic. Incredibly proud of our team for getting that done. Typically, taking a company public takes 12 to 18 months. We did it in 7 months, so highly compressed, 100 presentations, all over Zoom.
Right.
I was lucky there. And now running the company as a public company. And I have learned so much about the experience, but I would actually say one of the most important things I learned is even joining, and Vista has been so supportive throughout the journey, is being humble, showing humility. I remember starting at IAS being very open. I'm a first-time CEO. Here's the things that I think I'm pretty good at, but here's all the stuff I have never done. And just be vulnerable and open and look for the expertise and the guidance that you can lean into so you can become a more well-rounded CEO.
Great opening comments. Christina, let's talk about your career, LogicMonitor. And to give you a sense, LogicMonitor, if you think about, infrastructure monitoring, so you're measuring the ones and zeros and bits and bytes and the components and the dynamics of what's occurring in a broad digital infrastructure. You started your career at Salesforce.
Yep.
And let's talk about your journey from Salesforce to being CEO of LogicMonitor.
It's been a great journey. I feel super fortunate. I'm going to go back just a couple years to kind of set the standard for how that came about. So I grew up in Kansas City. I'm still excited off the Chiefs win a couple weeks ago. But my father was an engineer. My mom was an accountant. So they're like, you have to go to school and be one of those. So I went to Northwestern University in Chicago and studied engineering. But I also, before going there, I also had a deep passion for soccer. And so when I went to Northwestern that summer before my senior year, I thought, I'd love to go here, but they don't have a women's soccer team. So I went knocking on the athletic door, similar to Lisa, just, you're asking, you got to ask for what you want. Went knocking on the athletic door and I said, I'd love to come here, but you don't have a women's soccer team. And they said, well, we're going to let you in on a little secret. We're starting one for the first time this next year. And so I also am dating myself, but sent my highlight tape of VHS and used the physical phone call and mail and pestered the coach until she agreed to let me be on that first team. And so I think that's really where my love of building and being more entrepreneur was cultivated through that experience. And then I knew I had to be an engineer because my parents told me I had to. But I didn't, and I loved math and science, but I didn't really know what I was going to do with that. I'm like, what do I go be with this next? And so I took one of those career surveys, and it came back that I should be a park ranger. So that was exciting, and hopefully someday I will be a park ranger.
There's always hope.
There is always hope.
There's actually one park ranger on this panel.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
We're all gonna
I have the hat and everything, but we'll talk after.
Yeah, I can't wait. But that wasn't going to work because that was not going to pay off the student bills. So I said, all right, we're going to park that for a little bit. But what is it about that came up that I should be a park ranger? And so I think that was really pivotal because it forced me to think through what are my values and what are my guiding principles. And I think, as we were just talking earlier, that in this day of innovation and the world changing so much around us, it's really important to know that about yourself and know what is key for you, because you don't know I didn't know I wanted to be a CEO. SaaS did not exist. There was no such thing as cloud computing when I graduated. And so for me, it was all about the intersection of human and technology. And so that intersection of human, business, and technology. I loved science and nature, but I also loved people. And so that was really important for me to know. So I was at a consulting company before Salesforce, and I was doing these implementations called Siebel, which probably
Yeah.
very few people in the room know what that was. But it was this horrible experience. We would go to clients and everybody hated us. And I thought, it was this necessary evil. And that didn't sit well with me because I had this guiding principle of, I really want to have technology be more human and more business. And so I learned about Salesforce, and this was in about 2002, so it was very small. It was about 200 people, 20 million in revenue. But they were changing the whole way technology was delivered, which said, hey, we're going to think about this. We're going to build the infrastructure of it so that the customers could focus on the business side of it. And that resonated with me. And so from there, I was one of the very first customer success managers. It was not a function in the industry. Mark Benioff had came up with this great idea. It said, we're flipping this whole thing on its head. We're now going to make software a subscription business. So we need to ensure that there's ongoing business value. And so again, I raised my hand and I said, well, that is really meaningful to me because that's what I want to do. My guiding principles, my values are all about this intersection. So I took that first role and really helped kind of develop that out. And now customer success is a huge prominent function in companies. And so part of that was really knowing my values, but also saying yes to anything. I spent 15 years at Salesforce, saw tremendous growth. When I left, there was about 10,000 employees and close to 10 billion in revenue. But same thing started to happen. I was talking to our customers and I was hearing a common theme, which is, we love Salesforce, but now the world has changed and managers can no longer tell people what to do. So back, you can't say, you got to input information in a system. And text messaging was coming about. And so I knew that things had to get more conversational and more human-based. And so I learned about this company called Slack. And again, it was very small. And this was late 2016, early 2017. And it was about 70 million in revenue. A little bit bigger than Salesforce was when I joined, about 400 employees. But I knew that I had to bring this human element to technology and that the world was changing. And so got to go to Slack, really build out.
Let me ask you to unpack that a bit. One of the things we've always found, and this is our 6th year of doing this, so thank you again for inviting us to participate, is a number of people in the audience are often, and when they come to me, they're in the middle of trying to make a decision about a transition mid-career. So let's unpack your decision making, go from Salesforce, which is now on a rocket ship, to say, you know what, there's a new way of doing customer engagement and people engagement being said. What made you decide to actually make that jump and take that risk?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, I listened, right? And I'm very customer-centric is a huge thing for me. I listened to what were the customers saying and what are the needs and what are the problems they're trying to solve. And then I matched it again with my values. And I said, all right, I love Salesforce, but the value and what the customers are saying are not matching up for me at this time in my career. And that really gave me the confidence to move forward. And it was hard. It was hard after 15 years.
I'm sure, yeah.
I could have stayed there and, forever. And it would have been great. But I think, and I also had that love for building. I mean, I really feel like building the women's soccer team from the ground up really gave me that passion and that itch. And so as things started to get bigger and as things started to become more status quo, I immediately kind of jump off that bandwagon and say it's time to go start.
So
something.
now you're CEO of LogicMonitor. Talk a little bit about the experience that you're having there so far. You are on the cutting edge in many respects of really understanding what's happening in the cloud and infrastructure management. What are the areas that you focus on day to day? How do you prioritize your life?
Yeah, it's hard. It's been a fun transition, but I think for me, it's this very technical product. And when I came in, everyone was really proud of how technical LogicMonitor was. And I said, that's great. We, of course, our users are technical. But again, we have to think about what is the business value we're providing, and who are the customers and the people behind that. And so we've spent a big time saying, all right, we need to kind of shift that. And for us, what we do is we look for problems in the technology stack and solve them before they hopefully become a problem. And I was just saying on the way here, when Southwest Airlines had the debacle in December, we were on the phone quickly calling them and saying, I think you need our software. These IT operations folks, right? Like they get beat up all day long because they're always, people are calling and say, our systems are down, what are you doing? You're an idiot. And they're always on their heels, right? And they're behind there. And so if we think about how can we change their careers? And we give them now the technology that they're now either the problems aren't happening because we're helping them solve them before they become a problem, or they're in this position of proactivity. And so they're now becoming these heroes in their organizations, and they're becoming these strategic innovators, and we're literally changing their lives. And I think that's what's really exciting for me, and we constantly have to bring that back into the company. And so everyone understands, what are we building for? What are we doing? What's the value? What's even the human element of
Good, keeping
that?
them focused on their mission, and you driving that mission forward with them together.
Yeah, exactly.
That's wonderful. Let's go to Rachel. Rachel and I have been working together almost 20 years.
Yeah.
She is running the largest fund with her partner Renee of a buyout fund by women in the world. You should applaud for that.
Yeah.
And her results are spectacular. And we're going to unpack a little bit of that. One of the things that I've always appreciated about Rachel is her honesty, her straightforwardness in really, engaging in a discussion around where the company is, where it needs to go, and what the people of the company are saying, and how we need to move things forward. Rachel, I'd love for you to unpack a little bit about your career and why you decided as an operator to move into the world of private equity, and then now at some point you said, I want to now run this fund. And it's a wonderful experience in my mind, because Rachel came from, again, kind of an operating role and saying, I can actually create more value at multiple places than just one. And I can work with Vista in the system to make that happen. So Rachel, if you would, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had the good fortune of starting my career in equity research, covering enterprise software. I do remember Siebel. I covered Siebel. And when I had the opportunity to come inside of a portfolio company at Vista, my entire perspective changed. I saw that the way that we thought about making decisions, building companies for the long haul, making the right decisions, rewriting products, really thinking about what would create value 10, 15 years down the line beyond any of our involvement, actually created companies where we made better products, we had happier customers, we had happier employees. And having seen that impact 4 times over as an operator, it was kind of a no-brainer to then kind of make the transition to how do I help others do this at scale. And so my first 10 years at Vista, my first 5-6 years at Vista was as an operating partner, being able to help coach, guide, and help management teams do things they could never think that they would have been able to do before. Things that, we always talk about, our common sense, just not common practice. But when you give folks support, when you actually give them a new way of thinking, their eyes light up. This also happens to us during fundraising. People's eyes light up because they're interested in thinking about a better way of working and something that's going to make it better for themselves individually, but also better for their teams and their communities. And so having seen that, it was just a natural progression kind of into kind of covering multiple companies. When we started Endeavor 6 years ago, I really was excited about working at this part of the market. Our fund invests in companies that are between 10 and 30 to 40 million at entry point ARR. And we look for companies that are highly mission critical, that are solving problems and changing the way people work. And it's because you can affect change very quickly, and you can help people in a way that they can grow leaps and bounds kind of overnight. So I just really fell in love with seeing that impact. It's kind of addicting, actually. And then, I had the opportunity, Robert asked me to run the Endeavor Fund as a co-head just over 2 years ago. And it has just been a transformative experience, both for me professionally and personally, just as I've kind of shifted my mindset into, away from how do we think about each business, each asset, and how do we optimize it, to now really thinking about where we're going as a fund strategically and as a product. And so, I think as the private equity and technology industries have changed dramatically during COVID and past, it just creates a really incredible opportunity that honestly I don't think would have been here 5-10 years before. But also I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the fact that at a Vista level we create opportunities for people to do things they haven't done before, non-traditionally.
Rachel, one of the most important things that you do is assess talent.
Yeah.
And decide and determine whether or not this person should be a CEO or CFO or should be added to the board. I think it would be helpful to the audience to explain what it is you look for, what it is that you're, the tangible, the intangible, and what is your approach. You have how many portfolio companies today? 17?
We have 15, 15 today.
And you have 15 CEOs, 15 CFOs, and you're constantly thinking about and assessing talent capabilities versus the mission and with the opportunity. If you would unpack that for the audience.
Yeah, it's a great question because I honestly know this is the unspoken rule or the unspoken reality of the role. I probably spend like 30 to 40% of my time recruiting, either for boards or for executive teams or for future investments. And, I think on a human level, I'm a big fan of Patrick Lencioni's work around ideal team player. We always look for people who are hungry, humble, and smart. People who are really have a vested interest in building their own success, but their collective success, but also have the humility, and that's something Lisa brought up earlier, where desire to win outstrips ego. It's something we look for in every hire. And you know it when you see it. You also know it when ego is bigger than desire to win. In addition, I would say, something that I appreciate that both Lisa and Christina have hit on, it's the folks who are willing to raise their hand, who are all in. Again, when someone's kind of 1 foot in on an opportunity or skeptical or not sure or wants to be oversold. You also know when someone is a hand raiser and says, I'm all in, I want to figure this out, I'm coming with passion and conviction, and I would love this opportunity, because that person is the one who's going to try harder, innovate more, be more creative, put themselves all into an opportunity at any level. And I found that one characteristic tends to be the kind of flipping factor into someone really taking on new challenges and growth.
Last question for you, and then I'm going to ask both Christina and Lisa to answer this as well. When you think about, finding board members and what you want from board members, and I want you to talk about the composition of your boards and who actually adds value. What are you looking for in that context? You're looking for outside directors to add what to the mix of your senior executives and your operating team?
That's a great question. I think first and foremost, because we are traditionally majority investors, we have some minority investments as well. When we're thinking about our majority boards, we're first thinking about composition. We're wanting to make sure that there's both a diversity of composition in terms of both having more women on boards as well as more people of color. I think actually right now we're at 77% of our boards have at least one woman and 82% have a person of color. And I think holistically thinking about the composition and the overall strategic nature of how our board can function as a thought body at the end of the day for where a business can go. When we're bringing on external board members, I'm most often looking for folks who have deep expertise and passion for an industry who are going to help us forecast where could this business be, not in 1 to 2 years, but in 3, 5, 10, 15, and help craft that path and help bring it to life. That could be through product strategy and roadmap work. It could be through making strategic introductions to great buyers. But I'm always looking for someone who's going to help bring some of that future forecasting, because that's something, hopefully my team's not listening to this, my team is very, very, very strong at managing kind of the current course and speed of the business and understanding the rearview mirror and where we're going, again, for the next 3 to 5 years. But I believe the most valuable businesses are the ones that have strategy that, again, outlives all of our involvement. Mm-hmm. And so I really look for that perspective.
Great. Christina, talk about your board members and your outside board members and what you're looking for and what for them to contribute to your success.
Yeah, I'm going to build on what Rachel said. I think it is really, go back to my sports themes and soccer, and you really do have to build this team, right? And it's got to be diverse, like you said, in composition, but also in thought and experiences. And so you can't have, everyone who's all the same. And I certainly look for areas of my weaknesses, as Lisa was talking about is being upfront with where that is and saying, okay, how do I bring other people around me that can support that? And so we just added a couple weeks ago a new independent board member, and she brings kind of a deep, financial scaling experience, and really comes from that CFO background, and that's, my background has all been on the go-to-market and the operations side, and so it's been great to have her on board already, just even in the past few weeks, and bring that element and push me and bring her expertise to the table. And so I think it's really critical that we look at it in this team perspective and where are those weaknesses and bring that together. And people that'll challenge me. I don't want people that will just say, yes, we need to be challenged, or we're not going to be that long enduring company.
Mm-hmm. Lisa?
Sure. So now that we're a public company, we have a public board. We also have a female majority board, which I'm incredibly proud of. And in terms of the board members, similar to what they were saying, we look for specific expertise, but also public board experience. So experience in, chairing an audit committee, experience in chairing a comp committee, experience in security, in compliance. I mean, I could go through the whole list. But also, I look for board members who will give it to me straight. Mm-hmm. Will, even walking over here, we had our board meeting last week, and looked at my email, and one of the independent board members, long email about last week's board meeting. This is what worked well, and it's just between us, right? Here's the stuff, and I just love that feeling that I have a board that I can trust implicitly. I hope they trust me, but also I'm very comfortable, and I want them to pull me on the sidelines, pre-board meeting, after board meeting. This worked, this didn't work, next time. So there's constant back and forth with them. And then also board members who are willing to roll up their sleeves and help out and do work. And the thing that I've really made a concerted effort, especially since we've gone public, is it's so important, I think, as a CEO, to be explicit with a board. This is what we need from you. Mm-hmm. Here's where we need the help. Here's where we need the guidance. Because I've seen in the past that if you're not explicit, often a board will say, great, we did the meeting and we're good to go. So I'm thrilled with the board that we have, and they're in it to win, and they're in it to just help us continue to grow the company.
Good. I'm going to switch topics here, and I want everyone to respond to this. We have the good fortune of working in a very dynamic industry. Technology is constantly evolving. The environment that we participate in, our client base, what they need, what we're offering, our ability to always update, utilizing technologies, our products, our solution delivery, makes us a very fascinating and fun space to spend one's career. And now we have a changing economic environment. How are you responding to this changing economic environment? High inflationary dynamics and closed, if you think about it, borders in the U.S. in many respects, where we're having wage challenges and wage inflation that's actually going to dampen, I think, some of the growth aspects and prospects in America. What are you doing with your teams? How are you leading your teams and navigating them through what is, one of the more challenging environments that we've all faced as senior executives? Lisa, let's start with you.
Great question. So again, I'll date myself. This is the third down economy I've worked in. So I won at Microsoft. I won the second day that I joined Amazon, 2008, right after Lehman Brothers crashed. And then now, which is different. But the way I view this time that we're living in, I look for the tailwinds. I look for the opportunity. I look for how can we come together as a team, as an organization, and deliver even more on behalf of our customers, even if that means doing more with less. So we're very focused on tailwinds, whether it be how we're innovating our technology, the products and services that we're offering, providing greater analytics and insights. Our biggest customer base are Fortune 500 marketers, so think of Nestle and Coke and GSK, and really leaning in and listening to their needs. And if there's one thing I know about marketers in down economies, they want better return on investment. They want to understand even more visibility and transparency to every dollar they're investing in digital advertising. Where is it going? They love automation, love efficiency. So it's a rally cry for our company and our organization. And it's just so important how I show up every day, how our leadership team shows up every day, and really pursue the tailwinds.
Great. Christina.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. These are incredible times of opportunity as well. I mean, I joined Salesforce right in that .com crash, and that's how Salesforce was born. And so that was an incredible opportunity. And then I was there in 08, and also kind of Salesforce came out of that in a much stronger position. And so we constantly look at that, like how can we come out of this in a stronger position? So there's a few things that we've been doing. First and foremost is we are getting closer to our customers. We are going out, I've been fortunate here in New York, got a whole day of customer visits after this, and we're saying, how are we doing? How are you doing? What can we do to help support you? And really feel like there's that partnership and we're in it together, which is critical, that you've got to get as close as you possibly can to your customers in this time. The second thing is we are being incredibly focused. And so you have got to be super focused on where we're going and what we're doing and how we're aligned. And so we've rolled out kind of very clear strategic initiatives from my level all the way down to every single individual. And it's important that it all ladders up and down and that we're aligned as one team. And so we come together all the time and talk about that. How can we do this as a team? And then the third thing we're doing, and Vista has been really great proponents in the work you've done, Robert, is we're trying to access talent in lower, cost centers and geographies that we haven't been able to access before. And that's been really, really great for us, and using some of the tools that Vista provides, like the CCAT exam, which allows you to identify folks who maybe haven't had the right experiences before, but certainly have the skills and capabilities. And so we're doing a lot of work around that, continuing in India, building there, but then we're even starting to go into the inner city of Chicago and say, are there areas that we could, build up some of our service centers there as well.
Great. Rachel, you've got two dimensions of management in this challenging environment. A, your investment team and all that comes with value creation, et cetera. And then you have, 15 CEOs going to 18, going to 22 CEOs in those companies. How do you manage this tumultuous time and changing dynamics of valuations and pricing and debt formation and all those sorts of things? How are you managing through that?
It's a great question. On the investment team side, I think to your point, it's been a really hard few years. Not only are we in one of the most dynamic market environments that we've seen, it's also been, there's been such a lack of certainty in terms of where we're going that, I think the ability to continue to find opportunity and ways to be successful despite the market, has really pushed people to work harder and work differently than they ever have before. And so I think on the investment team side, one of the things I'm highly tuned towards is burnout. Candidly, I think folks are working harder and in different ways, and in some cases are still building new resilience models for how to do this work in a remote, in a hybrid remote environment with the travel, with still some, some of the COVID and economic overlays. On the portfolio side, I think I love so much of what Christina and Lisa have shared, because I think all of our companies are trying to do similar things. I think the only thing I would add on top of that is the best CEOs and CFOs I'm seeing right now are really agile in their thinking. So they're coming up with really dynamic plans for 2023 because no one exactly knows how it's going to go. And it's, leading indicators with monthly and quarterly decision points, almost like a decision tree to say, do you spend more, do you spend less? What did demand actually convert into real wins and real revenue or not? And I think as opposed to expecting anyone to have a crystal ball, it's more about having the data at your fingertips and the decision making and the team that you have kind of around you to say, how do we make the best decisions for the environment that we're in, which again will change every day, week, and month this year. And so I think I'm excited to see also what folks learn out of this cycle. I'm finding, through these difficult cycles, this is where leadership really matters. It's easier to be a leader when it's up and to the right. This is actually where I think more grit and more mettle actually really gets proven out.
Great. We have run out of time, but I'm going to let you all ask one question. Patrick, let's hear it.
Sure. Now, how does Vista assess geopolitical risk? I mean, we got China, we got the Ukraine invasion, Brexit in different parts of the world, and given the global enterprises that you guys are involved with.
Rachel, you start with that.
Yeah. I think more than anything, it's about really understanding your risk sensitivities and where you're most exposed, both at an operational level, whether you have employees, partners, customers in different regions, but then also being able to translate that into how can you be responsive and actually stabilizing your organization. Something I'm not as good at is forecasting, where all of these dynamics will go. I know, Robert, you've spent a lot of time recently on the road in January in Asia, at Davos in January. What else are you seeing?
So a bunch of things. One, we have to assess the needs of our portfolio companies. We operate in 180 countries. We've got 96,000 employees. We're in 70 different industries. And part of what we have to do is fuel these businesses, not only with capital, but resources being people and talent. Our centers of excellence that Christina talked a little bit about, we have to expand our capacity. 10 years ago, we didn't have centers of excellence in Guadalajara. Now we have one with I think 250 employees across 4 companies. So I think it's over 800 employees in total. We have one in Bogota, Colombia. We have one in Aviara, Portugal. We have one in Warsaw, Poland. What we do is expand our capacity to fuel the companies. Our companies grow on average 20%. People by the time when we buy the company organically and the time that we actually go through usually the first monetization. So we have to fuel it with people. If we can't fuel it here, we have to think about other places. The Ukraine, we had to move 280 people out of the Ukraine, move them into Poland and into Portugal, and also have to assess where is our next set of centers of excellence. We have employees in Belarus right now. That's one of the challenges we're dealing with. We had to shut down all the operations for 3 of our companies in Russia. So look, we deal with this every day, and part of what our job is to hopefully provide infrastructure support, insights, and resources for our portfolio companies so as they have needs, they don't have to rethink every single component of what's going to accelerate their growth. We have some standards that we can bring forward and some opportunities. We just made one investment in a company in Seattle. Its growth projection profile is suggesting we're going to have to add 400 people. Guess what? We're going to add 150 in Brighton, Colorado, and probably 250 in Guadalajara, Mexico, where the KPIs in our Guadalajara, Mexico facility are higher than our KPIs in Dallas, Texas. So we have to think about this as a global ecosystem to support our portfolio companies. But as a great question from an alumni class in 1994. Well done. All right, with that, we were out of time. Thank you all for your time and attention, and thank you all for being wonderful panelists.
Thank you.